The Secret of the Conde Hermanos, Chapter 12. Paloma could not forget the look on her uncle's face when he came through the front door that early July evening after his sudden decision to drive up the coast for the Bach Festival. The visit had been so impromptu that she had no time to prepare. Fortunately, the bed in the guest room had clean sheets, and she'd managed to pick some calla lilies and place them in a vase at the bedside table so as to add a welcoming touch. As she stepped across the threshold of the entryway and set down his suitcase and valise, his eyes fell on an old and long since forgotten sight that caused tears to well in his eyes, already weary from the long drive. "Dear Paloma, you still have it," was all he could offer in the way of explanation as he fought back the spontaneous flow of tears. Paloma followed the direction of his gaze and saw that it was resting upon the framed poster they had bought together many years ago at the Getty Museum, the one that he had also bought for her aunt, as she recalled. "You have a copy of Spring as well, Tio. You got one for Aunt Blanquita, remember?" she said while offering a handkerchief sympathetically. "I could not forget, little one, as it was my last gift to her during what was to be our last summer together. I inscribed it on the back with a poem by T.S. Eliot that she particularly liked, and it was her one possession that I, even in my delusional state after her death, could not give away." "Where is it now, Tio?" Paloma asked. "That's the strange part. I can't remember, for you see, although I could not bear to part with it, nor could I bear to look at it, and so I hid it out of sight. Where? I do not know," he said, closing his eyes and shaking his head self-reproachfully. "It doesn't matter," Paloma said consolingly. "It is there, and when it is ready, it will make its whereabouts known. Of that I feel certain. Please feel better, Uncle Carlos. Are you hungry? Let me fix you an omelet." "Oh, Paloma, you are heaven sent," he said, blowing his nose and following her like an obedient child into the kitchen, where a small fire roared happily in a little stone ingle-nook. "This cottage has not changed," he noted, allowing its storybook charm to further dispel his sadness. After breakfast the following morning, as they lingered over coffee, he asked the inevitable question, "How is your mother?" "Much the same," was Paloma's brief reply. "I am sorry," Uncle Carlos said gravely. The truth was that her mother had never really recovered from her father's death 10 years before. It had thrust her into a state of shock that had prompted her to move to the desert. Her mother had said she preferred it because of its seclusion, but mostly Paloma knew it served to obliterate all memory of the sea. "Paloma," her uncle continued in his serious vein, "perhaps owing to unfavorable circumstances no one has ever told you, or perhaps told you often enough, what an admirable job you've done of preserving your father's art legacy. He put his whole heart into creating his gallery, and you have kept it breathing. You've kept it alive. How proud I know he is of you." "Thank you, Tio," was all Paloma could manage to say, for it was true. She had only just graduated from UC Santa Barbara with a degree in art history the summer of her father's death, and she felt reluctantly that she had no choice but to step into his rather large, intimidating shoes and carry on what he had worked so hard to establish. "I have brought you something that I've always intended for you to have," her uncle said as he pulled out a well-worn notebook from his valise. "Your father was a gifted artist in his own right, as you know, And like most gifts, they begin to manifest in early childhood. Paquito, he called her father Francisco by his boyhood nickname, could draw a mourning dove or a frog before he could write his own name. You see, growing up, I had a little wildlife infirmary at home where I kept injured creatures in shoeboxes and mason jars. I fancied that I treated them, but mostly they just got a safe place to recuperate where Mother Nature could heal them in her own way. Without realizing it, I also gave Paquito an opportunity to study them at close range and draw them in surprising detail for one so young. For my 13th birthday, when he was 9, he gave me this notebook filled with drawings of all my many patients. It was like a field journal, really, for it contained dates, species, ailments, treatments. I have treasured it ever since, but something tells me it is time for you to have it, Paloma. She breathlessly took the notebook and began leafing gently through it. It contained pages of colored pencil drawings of every creature imaginable, from spiders and butterflies to house sparrows and finches, lizards and field mice, rabbits, and even a baby opossum. We thought his mother probably was hit by a car in the night. Sadly, so many of them are, you know, her uncle said, wincing at the painful memory as if it were yesterday. Paloma held the notebook closely to her chest, seeming to embrace the child her father once had been. The words "thank you" could not encompass her gratitude, but she said them anyway, while giving her uncle a heartfelt embrace. But he could answer only with unexpected self-recrimination. I have asked myself over and over again, was it my fault? Could I have prevented it? Over and over I've asked, her uncle admitted painfully. What are you talking about? Paloma asked softly. You had nothing to do with it. You weren't even there. Precisely. What if I had invited you to stay for lunch before driving home up the coast? Blanquita, had she been alive, surely would have. What if I had said, don't stop at Paradise Cove today for a picnic on the beach. Stay here. Eat with Bartholomew and me before you go. Tio, you're not making sense, Paloma told him gently. Something of unheard importance had started to happen that spring on the beach, a little farther up the coast from Carmel in Pacific Grove. In a small cove in the marine protected area at the base of Hopkins Marine Station, a harbor seal colony had established itself for the first time in over 100 years. After having been hunted to near extinction in the mid-19th century, harbor seals had avoided the Monterey Peninsula ever since. But the same chain-link fence the marine station had placed around the cove's overlook to keep humans from trespassing had given the harbor seals confidence to return shyly, as is their fashion, and give birth there once again. Paloma took her uncle to witness the truly primeval scene, hoping to take his troubled mind off the unpleasant memories and remind him, as he had once reminded her years ago at the Getty Museum, that evidence yet remains on Earth of places that don't exist any longer or haven't existed for a long time, as evidenced by the return of the harbor seals. Did you know that the earliest fossils we have of seals date back 20 million years? She asked as they peered through the fence at the seal colony below. Astonishing, her uncle said in deep reverence, especially considering Homo sapiens as a species date back only a mere 250,000. Oh, Paloma, think of the harm we've wreaked on these ancient creatures in such a short span of time. It breaks the heart. I know, Tio, she countered delicately, but perhaps we can learn. Perhaps we're improving. Maybe this is a harbinger of better things to come. Well, we have a lot of catching up to do. Time is of the essence. We must improve in a hurry, was his emphatic retort. The tide was not only extremely low that morning, but it was also a rare negative tide. The water was out quite far. In fact, one could actually see the bottom of the sea floor in places where the water normally would be over one's head. This condition exposed the unseen rocky contours of the intertidal zone, some of which was covered in luxurious long green surf grass. Here harbor seals languidly took advantage to lie, while other protruding formations were jagged and sharp, traversing the seafloor in the manner of small mountain ranges. What a hidden obstacle course they have to swim through, Paloma noted, at least most days of the year. Ah, but that's what makes it so attractive to the seals, her uncle rejoined. Think of all the tasty shellfish that live amongst those treacherous rocks. Think of, and he paused a moment, his expression darkening. Think of, and here his voice trailed off completely, for he could not bring himself to finish his next thought. But Paloma knew what it was. Think of what your father encountered when he dove headfirst off the jetty that day and unknowingly into the deceptively deep waters at Paradise Cove. At least, Paloma consoled herself, they had enjoyed a lovely late lunch in Pacific Grove afterward. She had taken her uncle to Fandango, where they'd ordered a savory paella for two, with a glass of tinto in hand and the exuberant music of the Gypsy Kings playing in the background. Uncle Carlos could not help but remark, "They are too happy, Paloma. Their music is too happy for them to be real gitanos." And yet they are. Maybe you are right, little dove. Maybe the world is improving after all. In any case, I'm ready to go home for a nap. Tonight is the Bach Festival, and we have a big evening ahead.